Hey, what is immortals? It is TCCrew here. Welcome to part 4 of What If Villains Had an Academy. Just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. And so we begin. Midoriya shudders before forcing his eyes open. The sunlight was glaring, and it took a few moments for his eyes to adjust before he saw a familiar face looking over him, sleeping. Yelping, the nervous teen leapt back before having his arm buckle. His body let itself drop, and he banged his head against the hard ground. All at once, the pain caught up with his body, and he yelped in pain, noting the bruises lining his arms and legs. He attempted to stand before being painfully reminded of his broken ankles. Toga's look turned concerned as Izuku rubbed the back of his head before noticing one of the pretty girl's legs was bent at an odd angle. The freckled fighter covered his mouth in horror, but Himiko seemed unfazed.
Your leg.
Midoriya muttered.
My leg is fine. We need to tend to your injuries. I heard your bones fractured from a decent distance away. I know a nearby place.
The crazed teen stopped short as a short old woman came hobbling towards them. A group of students followed behind her, concerned and awestruck. Without another word, she kissed the green-haired hero on the forehead, and all his limbs slowly felt less fragile. She turned to Toga, who after a few moments of surprise held up a hand in resistance and tried to stand, but couldn't. Heaving a sigh, the graceful gladiator bowed her head and allowed the nurse to heal her, which the old woman did amusedly. The injured blonde's leg was slowly slipped back into place before suddenly setting with a snap. Then her cuts and bruises faded quickly. This elicited yet another odd response from the odd girl. Abruptly, the two examinees nearly collapsed in tandem due to a massive wave of fatigue. Toga caught herself before the teary teen next to her, supporting him before he could fall. The two made eye contact, and Midoriya looked away, flustered. Toga giggled with a closed-eyed smile. The nurse smiled with them, before gesturing for the duo to follow. The pair of students walked along together, supporting one another. Himiko looked at Izuku again, who was focused on the path in front of him, and she realized that she didn't want to let go. She didn't want to go back to the headquarters with what little intel she collected. For perhaps the first time in her life, Himiko Toga wanted to make life easier for someone else. Memories of arguments flashed through the blonde bombshell's mind, and she settled on a single one to constantly replay, justifying her decision to stay with this boy.
I want to become Mr. Staney. I want to kill Mr. Staney.
Himiko giddily rattled off her basic drives to this new, strange man wearing hands all over. She was happy as could be, excited to be a part of something that would make the world so much easier to live in.
You don't have to say what you haven't been asked.
The ecstatic teen was caught mildly off guard at this. She wasn't expecting such a response from this blue-haired boy.
Jeez, everyone's so hung about Stain. I don't like it.
Himiko stood her ground, unmoved and cheery as could be, but was a little stung by how much their new partner, Tomura, was trash-talking her dreams of Mr. Staney. Of course, this didn't show on her face once.
I don't feel good.
The teenage bloodsucker didn't need to look at Dabi to know he also felt this stinging feeling. The primal instinct that told him combat was mere inches away.
You're all no good.
Shigaraki immediately lunged at the newfound pair of villains, and the duo leapt into action in kind. Thankfully, Kurogiri was behind the counter and deftly opened up portals, forcing every thrown attack to miss. The trio of baddies paused, taking a breath. Shigaraki recoiled his hands, scratching at his face vigorously.
I'm sick of hearing about Stain. Shut up about it and we'll get along just fine.
The young teen kept grinning, but inside she felt a pang of insecurity about joining the league. Maybe she was too hasty. She felt she had to defend her choices a bit.
But Mr. Staney is so cool. All the blood he draws, all the slicing and dicing.
The giddy girl was interrupted by a bar stool ripped from the floor and flung towards her. As she tried to dodge, a portal opened up in front of her and caught the projectile, harmlessly dropping it on the floor off to the side.
I hate Stain. Shut up about him already, hear me?
Tomura was clearly increasing aggression, and Himiko was tugging away by the shady man who had brought her here. Huffing, the blonde teen crossed her arms and looked away. Something kept bugging her, though. Something eating at her deep within her psyche. She tried to shake it off, but couldn't. Despite her consciously demanding herself to stick with this crowd, she couldn't remove that bit of doubt from her mind. Once he got a good night's rest, Midoriya kept training harder than ever before. He didn't think about the results of the tests when training, instead focusing on getting better with his quirk. Shortly after trying to practice without headphones, his mother ran outside with a letter addressed to the freckled fighter, and it was from UA. Rushing home, Midoriya skidded to a stop in his room and opened the envelope in front of his mom, anxiety at an all-time high. After clattering onto the table, the hologram flashed to life and showed an image of All Might. Midoriya, starry-eyed, was now sure to lock onto every word, and his mother smiled with tears in her eyes. "Young Midoriya, I am here as a projection!" Flexing a little bit, All Might turned to show off his full form. He froze in place, talking to someone off-screen briefly and just out of earshot, before continuing. "Ahem! I have your results right here, young Midoriya. I won't deny it. You didn't claim terribly many combat points. Compared to others, 24 points is relatively mediocre." Midoriya froze, eyes dying slightly. His mom rubbed his back comfortably, turning back to the message in a panic, almost as if urging All Might to get this over with. "However, this test is for heroes, and my goodness, young man, you are the prime example of a hero." The watery-eyed teen alongside his mother looked at the recording confusedly. "Not only did you save an unconscious combatant without worrying about your own score or well-being, but you used what should be a scar as your sword. You have not only impressed me, but the entire school." The teary student's eyes began streaming tears in tandem with his mom's. "Young Midoriya, you have achieved 60 whole rescue points, raising your score well above first place to be a whopping 84 points." Mother and son pair cried crocodile tears as they heard this, hugging each other close, relief and joy gushing within their minds. Their jubilee and sobbing was interrupted by an excited knock on the door. The two wiped their eyes as Midoriya made his way to the front of the house and checked to see who it is. He saw nothing out of the peephole and opened the door, looking around both corners of the house. "Ahem," muttered a voice from below the green-haired teen. He looked down and gasped, realizing just who it was. Principal Nezu waddled into Midoriya's residence with a smile and a bow.
"Hello, my name is Nezu, and I am the principal of UA. Nice to meet you."
The bipedal animal extended a hand, and Midoriya happily shook it with a smile.
It's nice to meet you, but why are you here, sir?
Midoriya questioned. Nezu nodded and sighed, looking up at the family of two.
"It has come to my attention that a very particular villain had attacked you, Izuku, and I also understand that this has led you to claim a couple of quirks as your own."
Suddenly, the anxious teen grew concerned and nervous. Did this disqualify him, since they weren't his quirks? He didn't remember seeing a rule about it, but maybe, almost as if reading Izuku's mind, the principal held up a hand.
"Please allow me to explain before doing some mental gymnastics. You see, it is true that those quirks are not your own. In all sincerity, they were most likely stolen from an individual and placed within you. However, it is next to impossible to return them to their rightful owners, especially considering the crowd they were tied into, which allowed them to get their quirks taken. As a side note, it seems these quirks have fused inside your body, thanks to the test you took in the hospital. We believe that this is due to the quirk compatibility, and from here on out, I believe it to be appropriate to call this power your quirk."
The tearful teen choked up at this a little bit, and his mother hugged him close. The principal continued.
"That being said, I believe it best you stick with the tutelage of All Might, one of our newest teachers. You might have heard of him."
The mini chimera smirked at this, and Midoriya grew starry-eyed at the mention of his savior's and role model's name.
"He may have told you already, but he is here mainly to teach. I have ensured you are in all his classes, and he has promised to help you keep up a training regimen outside of school. I also want to congratulate you on one of the highest scores in history of UA."
Face growing serious, the quirk mammal continued.
"You have been given such an odd and blessed gift, young Midoriya. Please go down the right path with it."
The freckled fighter was taken aback briefly, but soon regained his composure and nodded.
"Of course. Good. Now, Miss Midoriya, a moment. I wish to briefly review the plans we made for the school year last week, involving a certain someone." "Of course,"
the befuddled parent replied, bringing the principal off to the side room as they began to chat. Peeking outside the front door, Izuku saw the car that Nezu had arrived in, and there was a pair of silhouettes in the back seat that he didn't initially recognize. Losing his sense of time, he began to zone out, attempting to deduce who else could be in the vehicle. A tap on his back launched him back into reality and made him jump, the green-haired teen only calming once he saw it was his mom and the principal. He tilted his head, confused.
Sir, who else came with you? I see 2 more people in the back seat. Should I worry about it?
Yet again, the mini chimera held up a hand, then gestured out the door, a signal for the pair to get out of the back of the vehicle. As they stood up straight, Izuku's eyes grew wide and his mind imploded with questions he couldn't voice. Out of the car first came an older, scrawny figure, not much taller than Midoriya himself. His hair was a dandelion yellow, and he wore a loosing fit suit and tie. His cadence was one of mild defeat, but his eyes, something about his eyes reminded the young man of the #1 hero. Before he could ask about him, the other figure leapt out alongside him. Her upper body was covered by a tan sweater, evidently hand-knitted, and beneath it she wore a relatively short navy blue skirt. Her amber eyes shone brightly, and her hair was done up in double buns. Even more confused than before, the befuddled boy turned to the quirked anomaly in confusion. Nezu simply smiled.
I told your mother not to inform you until this time came about. Young Midoriya, meet Himiko Toga, a young girl who turned herself over to the law just so she could come to our school. With her as a bodyguard to you, and probation officer to her. His name isn't important, and if it is, he'll tell you.
Turning to the awestruck teen, Nezu gave a wide grin.
Izuku Midoriya, you will be living with Himiko Toga and his probation officer for a few months before school starts, and I want you to help ensure she stays on the right path. I know it's a lot to unload all of a sudden, but please trust me when I say we've set up every safety measure to protect you and your family. And do not worry about school costs. This exchange will ensure you go to the school free of charge.
He looked his new student in the eyes with such confidence and determination that Izuku found it difficult to not return the look to some degree.
As I said, you've got quite the opportunity here. Please never stray from the path of a hero.
With that, Nezu walked back to the car and helped the newcomers unpack their things. Without skipping a beat, Himiko tackled her hero in a massive bear hug, grinning and giggling wildly. Midoriya, despite being nervous and unsure for most of his life, was determined to follow through with his dream. For the first time in the past several months, the anxious boy genuinely smiled. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series, guaranteed. On top of that, we've got a third channel called We the Celestial Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I would like to extend out an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being, we only accept members 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be. Whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits, we're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have a great day.